Auric has now conquered an alien race, so why can't he go home and conquer Rome? This is one of the amazing books in the Valiant Universe. Now, we have already covered volumes 1 through 3, which explain the origins of Manowar, how he got his revenge on the aliens, and how he freed his people. So now it's time to discover how he went home, so I'm gonna give you a quick recap of what you're missing. Auric is from Dacia, a world from 16 centuries ago that was conquered by the Romans and removed from existence. What happened to him was that he was abducted by aliens and turned into a slave, where he then discovered their secret weapon, the Shanhara armor, could be used by himself to get his revenge on the aliens, and then he went to their homeworlds because they had removed him and put him into space, and his entire world was gone. He is now in the current day, and the remnants of his people, the Dacians, he took from the alien homeworld where they were being used as slaves and brought back to Earth. The reason we're doing this story today is simple. A new comic line for Manowar has started, and it's out today. I'll link the new journey of Auric down below. But since Auric has returned to Earth, he finds himself staring at his uncle's crown, because it is now in a museum. Things have changed since the last time that he has seen it. His homeland of Dacia is no longer around. Upon fighting off the Vine, Auric freed the other slaves on Loom and returned them to Earth. But like I said, it is 16 centuries later. His arrival in a Vine spacecraft has also brought the attention of the world powers onto him, including the US government. He floated above a park in Romania, and Auric knew what he must do. He must take back the land that was once Dacia and rule it as its king. Back at the current time, a voice calls out to Auric telling him that crowns are easier gained than actually won. He turns back and sees his old mentor, Galad, a man he once trained with in his younger years. Auric shouts to him that he is a welcome sight as an old Visigoth. Or is it young? It seems like Galad has not even aged a year. It has been 16 centuries. And Galad tells him that he could say the same. But he would wager that the story of how Auric is alive in this day and age would be as remarkable as the one as to how he acquired the armor that he now wears. Auric says that he wouldn't believe him if he told him. Wait, did the creatures capture you too, Galad? With a stern look, Galad tells him that he is not a Visigoth. Rather, he is more of Earth than anything. Auric asks him how. He remembers watching as he took an arrow to the chest, and Galad tells him that he should have died, but ordinary weapons cannot kill him. Galad goes on stating that after that battle, he went in search of Auric, but he found nothing. But now, he has returned only a few weeks ago from space. As he extends his arm, Auric tells him that he knows not of what magic that keeps him alive for so many centuries. But that matters not. He has counseled people once before, and he shall do it again. Without shaking, Galad says that he's glad that he wants his advice, because he comes with a message. And that is, what he is doing is wrong. This is not the 5th century. One cannot simply descend from the heavens and plant their flag on someone else's country. The world is watching. Auric shouts that his people deserve a place of their own, and he will see to it that they have it. Galad sighs, telling him that if he stopped for a moment and looked, he could see that this place isn't his anymore. Behaving foolishly will only lead innocent people to be massacred. But rather than answering with words, Auric answers by cracking Galad across the face. Galad responds by stating that he will allow that one from what he has suffered, but only that one. Auric stands ready to strike again, shouting that he is no longer a student, he is a king! He has freed a nation. The Huns, the Romans, they're all scourges! And them, forgotten, ignored, nothing but a handful of babble set on display. Auric goes on stating that they can change this. He will change this! And if the old teacher wish not stand by his side, he will learn what it is to stand at his! But as Auric charges forward to hit Galad again, Galad steps aside, pushing Auric past him, crashing him into a display case. Auric picks himself up from that case, and Galad tells him, "You claim to be a man, yet you still act like a child. Now stay down, or I will have to put you down for good." Auric glances at his old uncle's crown and he tells Galad, "I am no longer the boy that you once knew. I have fought many battles, seen things that even you could not imagine." Galad folds his arms, stating that he somehow doubts that. The earth has allowed him to walk its surface for more lifetimes than even he can remember. I've stood on the steps of the ziggurat in I saw Christ nailed to a cross. I rode at your uncle's side at the streets of Rome. I've bore witness to history. After getting up, Auric asks, has he been enslaved by an alien race only to escape with a conscious armor, conquered their homeworld, and returned to Earth with its slaves 16 centuries later? Galad stops when he hears that story, and Auric tells him, I didn't think so. And he winds up for another punch. But as that punch is thrown, Galad grabs it, gripping it and forcing him down, telling him, experience does not equal wisdom. And he pushes Auric away. As Auric crashes into the stone statues, Galad holds Alaric's crown, stating that Alaric endured many trials during his reign, but he learned from them. Auric jumps back up, swinging, shouting, You would dare speak of the crown! Have me surrender the land of my people? And Auric takes a swing, and Galad easily dodges, twisting Auric's arm and slamming him into a wall, stating that all you've done is set a ship down, and now you think that that's the end of it. All you've done is invite the combined armies of the world to rain calamity onto you. As Galad goes on, the Manowar armor floats and then it transforms, opening up. Auric tells him, You better make this lecture a good one, for it will be your last. Galad quickly turns back, shooting at the armor, but as it weaves past him and onto Auric, Auric says, The earth has not seen the likes of me. And the two of them begin to fire back and forth at each other, with Galad ducking behind a pillar, shouting that he is just like every other knight that he has fought before. Talk brave, but hide in a suit of armor. Auric stops shooting and tells him, Fine, what do you propose that we do? And Galad tells him, Honor but one wish. Galad pulls out a sword, telling him, Fight me as the warriors that we once were. As they run at each other, Auric creates an electric sword, stating, Not as I was, but as I am! The two swords clash as sparks and lightning shoot across the room, and through that light, Auric headbutts through it, crushing down on Galad's head. As Galad stumbles back, Auric rushes in, slamming his sword down against Galad, throwing him off balance again. But rather than let him fall back, Auric grabs Galad by the arm and tells him, I do not wish this to be your day, only that you never forget it. As Auric's fist clenches down onto Galad's arm, he bends it, snapping it, exposing the bone. Galad falls down to his knees in pain, and he tells Auric, You are such an ass that you would think that you could just charge through everything. You are far too dangerous to wield such a weapon. Trampling through enemies in such a way will tread on everything else as well. Auric looks down to see Alaric's crown on the ground, now destroyed. And Galad walks up, telling him, I am here to help you. Let us find another way, because right now the enemies are shaking hands to ally themselves against you. Without looking back, Auric says that he is to leave these lands and never return, and if he does, he will show no mercy. Galad turns back and leaves, calling out that everything that happens now is on his shoulders. Later, Auric returns to his claimed lands as all of the slaves now tend to the farmland. But as he spends his time with Sana, a drone flies overhead watching. Back in the US control room, Colonel Capshaw asks, Are they farming? What the hell kind of invasion is this? Clearly they must be intelligent to find Earth, but their leader appears to be an idiot. As Capshaw monitors, a call on a secure line comes in, and on that line is Alexander Dorian, and he tells her that he is an acquaintance of Neville Ascot from the British intelligence, and it is time that they sit down and talk. A little while later, Auric stands out in the fields watching a songbird as he did as a child, and as it flies off, he looks up telling his father that his son is finally home. He heads back to where the men farm, telling them that their harvest will last them 12 winters. Right now, they farm for themselves on the ground that he has claimed for them. The farmers then all begin to chant Auric's name as he smiles and waves, and he heads back to his home. But after leaving, one of the farmers, Volo, asks, Why do we cheer his name? Then his friend Tamis tells him, Because he has set them free from their masters. Volo looks around and asks, Free? Back on Loom, they were slaves tending to farmlands. What are they doing now? Tending to farmlands just as before. He, for one, is done with Auric's rule. He claimed the land was theirs as far as the eye can see, and now he is seeing much further than this field. As Volo walks off, Tamis follows, and the two men soon find themselves in the abandoned streets of Romania. Tamis asks, What are all of these rows of stone? And Volo tells him, Dwellings, perhaps. This whole place is alien to them. And as they walk, Volo notices something through a window. They head inside and they find food. Everything that they could ever want, right here, all in one place. Back at Auric's landing site, he is awoken by the sounds of a helicopter flying by. He quickly jumps out of bed, putting on the Manowar suit, and he jets off. In the helicopter, Alexander tells Capshaw over the phone to just trust him. He'll talk Auric down. One of the pilots mentions that they are approaching the landing zone, and Alexander says, Good. Keep the course slow and steady. We're peacekeepers here. And the other pilot asks if anyone told them that. A blip appears on the radar, and the pilots shout for evasive maneuvers. But rather than staying, Alexander jumps from the helicopter shouting, No, 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 no! And then it suddenly explodes. Auric flies by catching Alexander, and Alexander shouts that they were carrying the white flag of truce. Auric tosses him to the ground, stating that the last time one of the ships came by, it brought men who tried to kill him. As Auric steps back into his room, Sana asks who this is, and Auric tells him it's an old ally. If you're just joining us for the first time, Alexander Dorian helped Auric in the original battle against the aliens when he teamed up with Ninjak. Alexander stumbles in, telling her that he is Alexander Dorian, CEO of Orb Industries. Him and Arik saved the planet once, just the two of them. Arik stops him and asks, "What are you doing here?" And Alexander tells him that he is here by the authorization of the US government to offer him asylum. Arik smiles and says, "Ha! They wish to repay me for destroying the Vine commandos and stopping the invasion? Well, I, for one, welcome their warriors into our camp." Alexander rubs his face, telling him, No, the Americans are inviting him, and all of his people for that matter. He goes on to state that they are currently not safe here. 7 of the world's 8 nuclear powers are kind of in his backyard. What he offers for them is to pack up and set up shop in America and let them govern themselves. A scorned look comes over Arik's face, and he tells him that he is not Arik of America, he is Arik of Dacia. Alexander tells him, "Look, I can broker out a deal that will have you both coming out as winners here." And Arik stops him, holding out his fist, telling him, "I am already victorious. I have been blessed with the destruction of my enemies." Meanwhile, back in the market the farmers found, Tamas walks through the aisles when suddenly he is hit in the back of the head. As he falls knocked out, a group of soldiers appear and begin to drag him away. Back at the campsite, Volo presents the farmers with the already made food, telling them that Arik says wheat will come in months, but he can give them food today. The crowds all begin to chant Volo, and as they do, he looks around asking where Tamas went. Elsewhere, with those soldiers, Tamas is being strapped to an operating table when he hears the soldiers being told to wait outside. As the soldiers leave, a doctor in a biohazard suit pulls out a small saw, and Tamas shouts for him to stay away, but soon the van that they are in is filled with the screams of Tamas. A short while later, the doctor leans out of the truck, telling the soldiers that they can come back in. He's found something interesting. As everyone gets back in, they find Tamas completely cut open, and the doctor tells them that from what he can tell, these extraterrestrial people appear to be human. One of the soldiers begins to laugh, stating, "That's a good thing. It means that this should be easy to kill." Back at the campsite, Alexander asks Arik if he's given some thought on the offer, and Arik tells him no, he will remain here, because this is their homeland. Alexander then tells him, "Look, this isn't about conquering or anything. This is about keeping you and your people safe. There's 2 problems here. One is that you're planting your gardens in old Soviet Union turf, which is now a part of NATO, which means you're kind of pissing off the entire world. Second, you all showed up smack dab in the middle of a new arms race that's happening in space." Arik holds out his hand, telling him, "That is enough. I know what it's like to have things promised and then taken away. The Romans did it to us as children, but that ends now." Arik then walks over to the balcony, telling Alexander to look at how his farmers are taking care of their country. Watch as they plan, but he stops as he sees the farmers aren't doing anything. Soldiers gather on the outskirts of the camp asking, "Are they picnicking?" Arik flies down to the field to ask everyone why they do not tend to the crops. Where did all of this foodstuffs come from? Volo steps forward, stating that he found them. They did not travel to this new world to remain as slaves. Arik tells them not slaves, they are building a new life, as they wish it to be. But he stops him short, stating, "No, as he wishes it to be. All of this work is done with the strength of their backs as he watches from his dwellings." But as the two of them begin to argue, they begin shouting at one another whether it is right or wrong. Suddenly there's a blip in Arik's mask, and he shouts, "Watch and be reminded of what makes me your king." He jets off to the location of the mission, and the soldiers on the outside state that it looks like he took the bait. As he gets closer, Arik shoots through the missiles, but there is no explosion. He asks what trickery launched this attack but has no vessel. He then scans the water to see a submarine, and he rockets down below towards it. Back at the campsite, the military moves in, opening fire on all of the farmers as they try to run. Volo calls out for the few men to follow him back to the ship. They're going to take the fight to them, and suddenly the soldiers chasing them are mowed down by chain blasts coming from Volo and his men in the mech suits. Him and the others step out of the ship, and they continue to decimate any soldier in their path, while Volo leads the counterattack at the camp. Arik is ripping through the submarine, destroying it, killing all of those aboard. Volo shouts out victory and everyone cheers for him, but then a crosshair is aimed right at him. And off in the distance, a tank prepares to fire, and that's when Arik comes crushing it before it can fire. Arik leaps over to Volo asking what happened, and he tells him that him and his men defended the people while their king left them. Arik says that he did well, but they have not won. This won't be the final battle in this campaign. Back at the US Command Center, Capshaw says that it was pretty impressive for that fight to only end in 8 minutes, but at least now they know that their Russian sub isn't really all that great, right? A voice from the intercoms tells her that that's one way of looking at it. Capshaw looks back at the monitor and tells Toya Harada that what can she say? She's a silver lining kind of girl, which she now hopes he is one as well. And Toya tells her that preparations have been made. The time to act is now. Now this is setting up the storyline for the battle against Auric. You see, Galad is the Eternal Warrior. He's another character in the Valiant Universe. He can live forever. He's one of my favorite characters in the Valiant Universe. Auric has come home and he wants to reclaim the land for his people. That's what's going on over there. Toya Harada is a part of the entire Harbinger situation. He's actually the bad guy over there, but he's about to put together the team known as Unity. But basically, there's a lot going on, and we're gonna finish up the Exo Manowar storyline so that you can jump into the new book that has just come out, the one that I told you about. I'm gonna link this storyline and the new one down below, and I hope you guys enjoy. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel to see what's happening in Exo Manowar, and you can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram where we can talk about your favorite comic books.